Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Advisor. I am Lisa Urbanski, co-host of The Advisor, and here with me today is a very special guest. I am so excited to introduce you guys to him. His name is Richard Cruz, and Richard is a musician, a professor, all the things. And so,
All the
Richard, do
things.
you want to tell us a little bit about who you are? Because you have like about eight different titles.
Yeah, I'm a little bit of a mess, aren't I? Thanks for having
I think
me.
it's great.
This is awesome. Well, thanks. Yeah. Well, yeah, so primarily I'm an organizational development consultant. I'm with Harmonious Workplaces. That's our company. It's a division of my previous company, which I still have, right, which is Greater Chicago Consulting. I do teach. I teach at Trinity Christian College over here in Little Palos Heights, Illinois. Having a lot of fun with that, teaching management principles and advanced HR this term. Did HR before, taught marketing. Um, and I went back to school a couple of years ago because as I looked at like what my life was, and I talked about this in Stacy's show before, right? Like in 2019, I said, I'm 40 something years old. I'm doing marketing like for the last almost 20 something years now, right? Like what is it's like this everything that I want to do, right? And so I did some soul searching. I did a lot of like introspection and said, you know what, I'm going back to school. I'm going to learn industrial organizational psychology, which is the way people think and act at work, right? I think it's a remarkably fascinating subject and so needed today, and that got me into doing this organizational effectiveness, organizational design, and organizational development work that I'm doing today that I love doing.
Wow. Amazing. Was there a moment or did you have an experience that kind of sparked your interest in this type of work? Or you just started learning about it and you found a lot of interest in it, and then you're like, I want to make a change. I want to see if I can help other organizations.
You know, that's a great question, Lisa. And, I think where it really came down to is throughout my time in marketing, right? There's always this time where I end up bringing in a new piece of software or a new process or something that just wreaks havoc across the whole organization because everybody has to change the way that they were thinking and acting and doing this or that or the other thing, right? So you go in and you put Salesforce into someplace, right? And like everybody just is like, I don't understand this. I don't want to understand this.
Panic.
There's all
Yeah.
of that, right? Just panic. And so that it makes sense. Like there's a researcher Bridges that has this change model that says that people go through this stage of letting go at this first start, right? And so it's the ending, right? It's the ending of status quo. There's literally like these feelings of whether or not the system worked before, right? There are these feelings of um, grief, right? And so they have to go through these stages, and then there's this neutral zone where people are like, I'm unsure about what's going to happen, you know, and then they finally get to the new beginning, and now it's like, oh, I get this. We're in this. I may not be completely comfortable, but at least we're accepting, right? We're at that acceptance stage. I find that stuff like infinitely fascinating, and that what go so going through that with several different companies and going, was it really the marketing part that I liked the most? Or was it really that part? And that part sings to me. It all plays into how effective marketing is, but I think that's really where I went with that. What changed my life.
Wow, that's pretty cool. And I know I've worked in many organizations, and you introduce something that you see, the future of, you see it changing the future of the business. And then you
Right.
have your employees and you have to get them on board. So I love that. I love that so much. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that? I know we were going to talk about some psychological strategies today, but I
Sure.
feel
Yep.
like part of the getting people to buy what you're selling, in order to get them to that next stage and growth in the company, there's all that psychological process along the way. So we can kind of tie the two together.
Absolutely. For sure. Yeah. Um, Well, so very recently, I started while I was in school. I met Cheryl Volpe, who is in Pennsylvania, and we hit it off in class, and we said, we need to do something after this, right? And so we got together and started Harmonious Workplaces, which is our consulting company. And then we brought in Ben Kleinman, who is he's a Northwestern grad. So we went to Purdue. He went to Northwestern. He has an MBA, and we started doing this podcast, the Harmonious Workplaces podcast. And as we're going through, like we're 47 episodes into this thing now. We've had a few guests, and it's been great.
Nice.
Um, but we're really some common themes have come up, right? And one of those is psychological safety, right? And so
Right.
around the whole organizational change part that I was talking about there, right, where we put a software piece in, we put a new process in, right? People are afraid. They're afraid to make mistakes. They're afraid that there's going to be some repercussion, right? So anxieties go high, right, during all of that. And so it's come into conversation. I mean, psychological safety has been around for a while, and our my colleague Cheryl actually wrote a white paper on this. So it's
Okay.
available on our website. But we talk quite a bit about this, right? People need to be able to feel like they can express themselves. Like if you just let somebody express their concerns, right? Like as simple as that is, the feelings of fear start to dissipate, right?
Yeah.
But we don't often allow that space. It's just like we got a job to do and we got to just do this, right? Um, but if you look at companies that really have survived the test of time and do well, you'll find that some of them have, and that's not all of them, but some of them have this in common where you know innovation can happen and mistakes happen and then they learn from them and they move on. I think it was
Right.
even Peter Drucker said something about if it's going to be very rare. I'm totally paraphrasing this, but it's rare that you are ever going to make it on the first try, right? I think it's powerful.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we need it in our workspace. We need to be able to have people feel like, okay, I made a mistake. I'm okay. The company's okay. We've got fail safes with it. I mean, I'm not saying, you know, go and have a big risk and just risk it all. I mean, go into things with a plan, but to have some degree of support in all of that is just super important.
So, Rich, what is through your studies and I mean, being involved in all this, why are people afraid in the workplace? Like, what is the number one reason?
The number one reason, I don't know if I could ever point to a number one reason.
Okay.
However, something that comes to mind pretty often, and I think the Gallup State of the Workplace survey supports this. There are other surveys by other consulting companies that support this. The relationship that people have with their manager is so
With
important,
management. Yep. Okay.
right? I mean, we spend more time with our managers than we do our spouses, and oftentimes, right? And I think it was Gallup that said like up to 70% of the employee sentiment of their satisfaction with their job is their relationship with their manager, right?
Yeah.
So you've got some, these best places to work and those types of places, those types of lists that are out there, right? But um, I just think that 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 one thing, right? That if you can have a manager that and it doesn't have to be like inherent. Like it doesn't there are people who are naturally agreeable and conscientious and open and empathetic, right? There are those. But that stuff can also be to a large part trained and developed over time with people. But I don't think a lot of companies put a ton of stock into that. I mean, some of them do, but I think there's room for growth on that. Let me just put it that way.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head in my personal opinion. It comes down to leadership, right? The
Yeah.
leadership in the
Hmm.
company, your relationship with your employees to empower them, right? To make them feel heard. And it sounds like that's what you guys are trying to get out into the world and help people do. So
Right.
how does that work? Like harmonious work workspaces? Sorry, harmonious, is it
Sorry, harmonious workplaces. Yeah, that's our
workplace?
consulting.
Did I say workspaces? Oh my gosh. Okay,
Yeah,
well.
yeah,
Same kind of thing, but we want our listeners to know exactly what it is. So it's harmonious workplaces.
that's right.
So you
Hmm.
guys can help organizations with development and all that. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I mean, we are by and large, what we try to do is help companies navigate change.
Okay.
Because, I mean, and that is assessing, what the current situation is and assessing the culture of the organization, right? All of that is very, very important, right? People need something that's stable, right? When we look at like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Like stability is like the number two thing on it. Like they need to know that they're going to have a job and they have money coming in and that they have a day to day of some kind, right? So that's important, but change is going to happen. It's going to disrupt it. It's going to disrupt the way we do things, right? And we have to be able to be resilient enough to change. So um, what we really do is try to work within some frameworks in organizational development. So
Hmm.
that involves assessment, that involves making recommendations, and that also involves some of the implementation part of that, right? It has to do with, people lump it into human resources,
Yeah.
but it goes a little beyond human resources in a lot of respects because you have to look at the business processes. And I think that's one of the things that kind of helps to differentiate us from some of the other firms that do this is that we do look at this from both an quantitative aspect, like what are sales like? What is production output like? Literally looking at some of those facts and figures, regressions over time, and what does our current like work design look like? Um, through work analysis and then job analysis, and then um, try to quantify that, right? But then there's also this qualitative aspect of kind of the squishy stuff. You know what I mean? Like trying to really understand how people are talking to each other, fitting in with each other, and um, so
You're
we
talking
we
about
take all
workplace
of that
culture? Is that what you're talking
workplace
about? Like,
culture. Yeah,
right.
yeah,
Okay.
but then we take that and we understand the as is, like how are we doing this now, right? What's the difference between that and how it's going to be in the future, right? There's going to be nuances, and try to really help to quell the fears among the people, give them an opportunity to express themselves and talk, and foster communication, right? So I think um, some of us in this group, we have experience in change management. Some of us have experience in communication and marketing. Yours truly, right? So we try to
Right.
employ those those kind of gifts and strengths to add some value to the company as they go through this. I mean, in the end, it's going to really be up to the company adopting this change and making that happen. But our job is to make sure that they are fully informed, that they have the tools and the techniques that they need to do this. And then, when we're done, there's we try to make sure that there's a really good handoff, and we're always there to help support along the way. And some of our clients, they retain us, and we love that. We love when that happens. Yeah,
Right. Yeah. So
yeah,
that means that you retained for a long period of time. So you can see the changes go through and help them throughout the process. Is that correct?
for sure. Yeah, yep, yep. But
So it
but
sounds to me like you
ultimately we
pull
want
every little piece. You're able to go in and see all the pieces of the business. You can get a feeling of what the workplace culture is like. And then you
right.
take all that data and you develop a strategic plan to help them grow and go through change.
That's right. That's right. As I
Wow.
teach in my class, you gotta. to do strategy before you do strategy, right? And I think this is one of the things that a lot of change models actually kind of omit, which is kind of weird. You got to do the analysis, right? And you got to
Yeah.
take a look at where we're at now. Then you build the strategies and you build the tactics to reach those strategies to reach the, oh, actually, I should say this analysis. From the analysis, you're going to get your objectives, your goals, right? Smart goals, as everybody probably knows, but I'll say it again because it's always worth saying. Class, listen to this.
Listeners, are you
Smart.
listening? Listen to
Yes,
Rich
right.
right now.
Yes, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time constrained goals, right? You're going to hear that through your whole life. I tell my class that every day when I walk in. They're tired of that acronym, except you should never get tired of it. But
They're like,
set those
Rich,
specific
stop
goals.
calling us smart. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. Exactly. But when you do that, you can develop strategies to reach those goals. You develop the tactics to reach that. Now you can allocate your resources, to make all that work, right? So we don't do the operational part of it per se, right? We are more of like the facilitators to make sure that the company can put together the operations. So we'll do the project to make sure that they and do the operational handoff, if that makes sense.
So it sounds to me like you have a conversation with all the players in a business. So you must have some pretty interesting conversations.
All the time.
I
All
can
the
only
time.
imagine. I can only
Yes,
imagine.
yes. And
You
it's
know
great
so many
because
secrets about so many people's bosses.
yeah, there's some of that for sure. You learn you certainly learn that, and it's interesting because you always have to be. It's one of the nice parts about doing this type of work is that you have to keep a little bit of a distance there and make sure that you are keeping things, uh, both being ethical on how
Absolutely.
you're doing this, so being transparent, but at the same time that you're not oversharing, that you're the
Yeah.
whole idea is really asking questions, you're going to get answers, taking that down, instead of I know I'm doing a lot of talking here, Lisa, but
You're doing great. You're doing great.
it's it's mostly though like asking questions like what you're doing, right? Asking questions and then eliciting the responses. So
Yeah,
it's
you're gathering
we're doing
data.
the opposite. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly.
And what I'm also hearing is that you're going in and you're mirroring or you're showing them leadership. So by going in and having those meetings and keeping, personal information and not oversharing and listening, you're showing them the skills that you would use in a workplace, right? So you're
Yeah,
going in there and modeling that for them and showing them what appropriate behavior is, showing interest in humans, asking questions, hearing, letting people be heard, right? And that's so important in a workplace. And to create that
absolutely.
culture for workplace, that's magical. That's amazing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, we like to think so. But you're right. I mean, we do have to model the way because ultimately if you're in a leadership position that doesn't necessarily mean like a given leadership position because leaders can happen on any level at any time. There's all kinds of different types of power, right? I think there's specifically five types of power in the textbooks, right? But the influence that we have on people, um, we have to be we have to be responsible how we do that, right? But we all have an opportunity to how do I put this? To be influential in a positive way by being internal consultants, if that makes sense.
Tell me
If we
more.
have an idea, well, if we have an idea, right, and we're let me put it this way: if we are observing something that's happening and when we have an idea of I can make this better, right? And I'm an internal employee. Let's just say I'm even like on a production line, right? And I have an idea. The change can start with that person saying, I think we can do it this way, coming through with data, right? Like, here's how we're doing it now. But if we do it this way, I mean, we've even seen movies do this type of thing, right? But in reality, this this can happen on any level, right? Whether a manager or an executive. Um, where we're observing what's happening, we're saying we think we should move in this other direction. If you can rally support around that, if you can gather evidence to support your change, and if you can have an environment that fosters that so that there is the ability to have innovation, your company is going to be able to make money. And I'm going to quote Peter Drucker once more, and it's not a quote because I'm terrible at remembering quotes, but paraphrase, right? He says that, or said, right, that marketing and innovation are the two things that make money in a business. Everything else are costs, right? So if you're marketing, you're communicating your value, right? Creating value too with marketing, right? Because you're doing product development as part of the whole marketing process. But then the innovation part, like how do we do our processes? How do we create a better product? How do we create a product that that meets a new need, right? Those are the things that make a company money. And if we can provide the safety for people to do that, right? To come up with those ideas and make a few mistakes and break a few eggs, but ultimately come up with something. I think companies, especially in this market now, right, where they need to differentiate themselves, you have a huge opportunity.
Wow. So you were talking about it right there. You said challenges. Why don't you share with our listeners some of your biggest successes and maybe some of your challenges? Like, walk us through what the process has been like, what you've been able to do for companies, and how
Yeah,
that translated so our listeners can fully understand. And then
yeah,
just maybe for some fun, tell us about some of your challenges.
sure, sure. So, I mean, certainly a couple of success. I'll just highlight a couple of successes. We've been able to help a nonprofit organization to bring in they brought in Salesforce as a new system.
Wow.
People think of it as just a CRM, right? But in this case, it handled like everything, like how we take in money, accounting, all everything. So it really acted like an ERP. So
And for a
helping them
not-for-profit,
through.
that's huge.
It is, and it was a huge undertaking, and it actually, it became demotivating at first because it sucked away so many, that they have a limited budget, right? And it just sucked away so much of that budget to get this thing implemented. But in the end, after working out the kinks and getting people on board to change from the one system to another, now you have now you had a people who where their self-efficacy went up, their confidence level and how they can do things went up, and now they're able to be more confident in providing service. That when they can exude that, the customers feel that they could trust the company, right? And so, you saw a little dip in productivity, and then shoot, then it shot
The
back up
learning
and
phase,
exceeded.
right? The
Yes,
learning
right. This
phase,
is the learning phase, right?
implementation.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So that's one. We helped a law firm recently kind of do a similar thing. It was not Salesforce. They had a new system. Nobody was using this thing. Everybody started using Excel files and doing it on their. So they put tons of money into this management tool that they had, and nobody was using it.
Oh
We
no.
came in and just and that's not that's not uncommon, right? People go, oh, I would rather use an Excel file or a Google Sheets file, or I'm just going to write this down on my little pad and remember this. So we had some of that. We had one of the employees with a stack of books of their own notes that never made it into the system, right?
Oh
So we would
wow.
go into a meeting and then she'd be like, oh, wait, it's in my other book. And it's like, what? this, this person's coming in next week. um,
That's
we
really,
need
yeah.
to we need to have this in the system, right?
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
so 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 we found out, what the problems were. And it really came down to training. That was part of it, right? There were some systematic changes that happened that should not have happened. So, we went back to the software provider and said, can you take a look at this? They fixed that. And so now everything's running smoother, the data's flowing, people feel comfortable putting in the inputs and all that. And so when that happens, again, your self-efficacy goes up, people start to feel more aligned to what are we supposed to be doing here, and they understand that their inputs, in this case, especially their inputs, were valuable to understanding the client, right? Because in law, the client is uneasy oftentimes, right? Even in this, even if it's something like wills and trusts, right? They're
Yeah.
still like nervous about this. They have to trust who they're working with. When you can have a system where they know that their information is accurate, where they're, it's secure, right?
Yeah.
Those types of your practice is going to go up. I mean, they were doing a pretty good business. Don't get me wrong. That the owner is a remarkable, just a remarkable person. I mean, she's a dynamo, really. But the practice needed some help in putting their systems together. So we came in, helped them out with that. Took just a little bit of work on our parts for a few months, and they were zipping away.
Wow. Systems are powerful. So powerful.
Absolutely.
Not only
Yep.
that, but I guarantee you, you like made a ton of legal assistants' lives easier because you cut down on admin work.
Well,
People don't understand the level of admin work there is and stuff like that when you don't have proper systems in place. And that can be exhausting. So it sounds like you gave that law firm new life.
we hope so. That's what it seems like. And we still
So Rich,
support them,
oh,
for
you
sure.
do? Okay.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Amazing. I just now I forget what I was gonna ask you.
Well,
Um,
you were going to ask me about challenges if we have.
I was,
If,
but I had a thought after about that. That's okay. We can talk about challenges. Yeah, what is one of
oh,
your challenge? Oh no, I have it now. I was gonna ask
what?
you, so if you walk into a company, you guys can also pinpoint the things that they might need. Right. So they might not even know what they need. So you guys go in there and kind of suggest things as well. Like, because I know systems is a huge pain point for a lot of people,
Mhm.
especially in new companies, because not everyone has that brain, right? So do you
Right,
guys also
right.
suggest certain things and have those tools for them to offer?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we've had where, and it's been more than one client I've had where um, the customer's like, I don't know why I can't keep my employees. Literally, the words were, I can't
Wow.
understand how my competition keeps poaching my best salespeople.
Oh
Right?
my,
And so you go in there and you take a look and you start talking to people and finding out, what's going on here and all that. I mean, sometimes it comes down to they got a better deal somewhere else, right? I mean, that happens.
right.
Particularly but oftentimes it comes down to what's the culture like? Do they feel supported? As I mentioned before, there's this manager component, right? Um, perceived, uh, perceived organizational support, right? POS. That is a very important part of how employees need to feel about the company, right? If they feel that they're supported, they're going to stay there, and if they don't, there's other places they can go that at least purport that they're going to,
Yeah.
support them, right? So, yeah, and so it's one of the challenges that I've had in that respect. Oftentimes is, well, our culture has been good. This is the way that we do business, and we've been doing this way for two generations or whatever, right? And so,
Interesting.
and we've got people who have been here for 30 something years, and great. And then you go talk to the people who have been here for 30 something years, and they're like, yeah, yeah, but we when those rocky times happen, we just kind of lay low until until it gets better.
Right.
Um, so
That's a scary
have
way to be, though. I imagine them like hunkering down under their desk or something right now, you
eh,
know?
it could be, sometimes I'm not going to lie, sometimes, but you know, eh, all in all, I mean, usually it's like some small change, right? It's not. I don't want to sound like I'm painting like every client is like a terrible, place to work or whatever, because that's not the case.
No, no,
We've worked
it
with them.
sounds to me like you're enhancing. You're
Yeah,
enhancing, right?
yeah,
Because
yeah.
what you're involved in, I know when I'm like in my previous company, you don't see those things because you're just in that culture. You bring someone new in and they're able to pinpoint the things that you might not be able to see. It's like, looking at it from a different perspective. So you're able to go in and give companies a different perspective,
Right.
because you're not there all the time.
That's right. Yep,
Is
absolutely.
that fair? Is that fair to say?
I think that there's a lot of validity in that. I used to own a business. I had a sign company years ago, during like before the recession here in the States and all that stuff, right? And um, it was like my second year in. I had a coach that I hired, right? And it was always helpful to have that third party perspective like that, for somebody else to come in and look at what's happening and be, I mean, I'm not going to say completely objective, because there's a certain framework that somebody uses, so that there's some bias to it, but to some extent, I mean, in all honesty, we use a variety of different types of frameworks to do the work that we do, and it's based on what the customer needs. Um, but yeah, when we can come in as a third party and say, hey, this is what we're observing,
Yeah,
oftentimes it's like, oh, I didn't think about that. Or I didn't think about
powerful.
looking at that metric, like what's my return on human capital spend, and what's my uh what's my like revenue per employee, some of these things that are like about organizational effectiveness, like those are things that we don't often look at. We look at a P&L, but maybe we're not breaking it down to the human level part, and what can we do to enhance that, if that makes sense.
And so for the listeners who don't know, what's a P&L?
Oh, your profit and loss statement, right?
Okay.
The statement that says, here's how much we made in these different categories. Here's how much we spent in these different categories. Here's my earnings before taxes and depreciation, EBITDA, right? And then we have so we'll have our gross profit, EBITDA, and then we'll have our final, you know, um, profit in the end, right? So that tells a story, but you can put it into the context of the people, and then you start looking at, you know, the organization from an individual perspective, like on a role basis, right? And
Right.
then the people themselves. And then you look at it as the organization, like how is the organization working together to achieve what we're trying to do?
That's awesome. So you're able to kind of see all the pieces and put it together. That's really helpful. I love that. Now, I know we can't fully discuss this, but I want the listeners to know. So let's talk about this book that's coming into production. And
Okay,
yeah,
we'll talk about the book. Okay, I'm going to show a prototype of the book. Right, so this is our little hermit crab character, right? And so the book came out of it's written by me, Cheryl, and Ben. And Cheryl came out of the entertainment industry, and again, Ben came out of management consulting. And I always wanted to be a cartoonist. My undergrad is actually in visual art from the University of Chicago, and
yeah,
I wanted to draw a cartoon. That's what I wanted to do with my life. Um, and then we said, you know what? Maybe we can do something that, adds some value, but it's fun. And so, in this little book, we've got, every there's 10 different gags that are in this book, right? They're all illustrated, and then there's a lesson to be learned at the end of each chapter. We are going to be republishing this book. It'll be coming out in just another couple of weeks, maybe a week. um,
okay.
so we're just relaying out some things. But yeah, if you hear tales of an HR hermit crab,
Yeah,
that's going to
I
be
won't say the
us.
name, I promise. I won't say it.
Let's not say the name yet, but I promise it's going to be great, and you're going to love it. And We've gotten some really good feedback from the people that we've been, sending this to, and who have gotten the first edition, right? The limited edition of first editions here.
That's all. So
Um,
it's an adult book of HR lessons. Is it funny? Is it
yes,
helpful? Is it like something that every office needs in their
I,
lunchroom? Like, what would you
I
say?
would I would say any HR professional, any manager, for sure, like any manager, to put this into, I think it makes a great birthday gift, stocking stuffer, anything like that. White elephant present,
Yeah.
you'll also find that we're putting out webtoons. So we're trying to put out a webtoon at least a couple of times a month on our website at harmoniousworkplaces.com. We have a little puppet of him, like a digital puppet
Okay.
so some video that is being produced,
Oh, that's so
and
fun.
it's so fun. It's a lot of fun.
So
I get to
fun.
I get to
Yeah.
be a cartoon character voice. Are you kidding me? I'm so
Yeah, no
it's like,
kidding. Well,
oh my God.
you're also a musician, so I think those kind of tie together, right?
Yeah.
That's
I
cool.
was very pleased that my co-hosts on the podcast, they agreed to let me like write our background music. So
Okay.
little garage band. But yeah, I play harmonica, bass, drums. You know, uh, and we actually, silly little unknown thing about harmonious workplaces. We do facilitate drum circles. Maybe that's something to talk
Wow.
about, not the next show, but the show after that,
I
because we've
love
been doing
that.
that for leadership groups, and it's a lot of fun and really impactful.
Yeah, the listeners got to come back for the next show to hear about your drum circles for sure. Oh my God, I'm excited. I'm excited to hear about it. You're just like a
Oh,
jack of all trades. You got all the
I don't
things,
know
and
about
you
that.
make workplaces sound fun. I mean, I don't know, people hear about the workplace and it's got like this negative connotation to it, but really it's not. Like workplaces should be fun. If they're functioning properly, they
All
should
right.
be a good place to be because you're right, we spend so much time there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if we know, right, that we're playing a part in creating something that helps somebody else, how can you not have fun with that, right?
Yeah.
But when you don't, and you just feel like you're a cog in the wheel, or oh, I'm just doing this to do this, but it, it's a different ballgame, right? So if you have purpose, like just
Yes.
this, living this kind of purpose-driven career, that's what we need to do as managers, right? Is figure out how do we make the purpose of the company and 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 align that with our own life's purpose. Does that make sense?
It does. You need your values in there, and you need to
Yeah,
know what your values are, right? And then you need
right.
your employees to feel that, to feel your passion. And that's so cool. So, Rich, what are some takeaways you want to leave our listeners with today? No pressure. No pressure.
I no pressure. I mean, honestly, I think the main takeaway is a couple of things, right? Number one, really strive for a good organizational culture that is supportive, right? One, so um, work on that perceived organizational support. I think that's a big part of this. Number two, really, help people to feel comfortable with change and be resilient by listening to them. Number three is allow people to make mistakes, refocus their mistakes. Actually, yeah, come to think of that, just real quick. So Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, he wrote that book. He also wrote
Yeah.
a book called Outwitting the Devil, which is a kind of a
Outwitting the
controversial
dumb.
book. Outwitting the Devil. So
No,
it's
okay, but that's like what
yeah,
the
yeah,
devil.
yeah,
Oh,
right. Yeah,
oh,
it
interesting.
is a
You should make a
yeah.
cartoon out of that one.
Well, I know, right? That's bordering. I mean, it actually didn't get released for a couple decades because people were
Wow.
his family was afraid of the fallout, right? But one of the things that came out of this book was that every failure, right? Every bit of adversity drops a seed of potential success, right? Not
Yeah.
necessarily success, but the potential for success, right? So there, with every one of these little failures that we have, our big ones, I mean, frankly, I went bankrupt after the economic collapse and
Pandemic?
all that stuff. 2008,
Oh, okay.
right? It was really tough. I was working with manufacturer or not construction companies and real estate companies. Well, they just went belly up, right? And they were the ones buying signs, you know. But out of that, I started doing consulting work. Out of that, I started learning how people think and act and all that, and that brought me to where I'm at today. So, so that failure planted that seed, and so I think if we use that and think about that in the context of psychological safety at work, we have a good chance of making 2025 a pretty good.
I love that. And if I may, I completely agree with you. And I truly feel that challenges open doors for opportunities
Absolutely.
because
Yeah.
you have to restructure and rethink things and then learn from those mistakes. So I love that. I definitely agree with you on that so much. And it sounds like your life has evolved into something you enjoy so much. And the impact you're making is beautiful. And I just can't wait for the book to be released because
You and me both.
I was looking at it last night and now I can't buy it because it's going to be released in a week, you said.
Well, it'll be released very soon, but I promise you I will send you a copy. No need for you to buy it.
Well, I'm excited. It looks like so much fun. So where is it going to be featured?
It'll be on Amazon, of course, but you will be able to find it on the Harmonious Workplaces website at www.harmoniousplaces. Let me try that again. www.harmoniousworkplaces.com. There we go.
Okay,
Yes.
harmoniousworkplaces.com. So I did it,
Yeah.
you did it. I blame me. I blame me. You tripped it up because I messed it up earlier.
Not at all.
Yeah, and just so our listeners know, what services do you offer? You offer a whole bunch. And so if they go to
Yes.
your website, they'll be able to find
Mhm.
everything that you offer,
Yes.
correct?
Pretty much, yes. So you will find information. First of all, you'll find our workplace culture scorecard, right? So that's free to use. We highly recommend that you use that. Take a look at that. We have a psychological safety white paper. That's free to download as well. We just put out a new one that Cheryl wrote. It's a really good paper on signaling in the workplace. We'll have a workshop on that and psychological safety coming up soon. I believe that's at the beginning of March, so we'll have more information about that. Um, we have a change management framework that Ben is like our change management guru, right? And he wrote a simple change management framework that's also available to download. We have a visioning session that we offer. It's a great way for you to be able to develop your vision and then be able to communicate that out. So we have a whole thing about the importance of vision, particularly in change management. And then finally, we have some information on those drum circles I was talking about. So you'll find all of that on our website. And I'd be remiss in not saying that we have our podcast there. So you'll find all 47 episodes of the podcast. We'd love to hear what your thoughts are on that.
Amazing, amazing. So this has been so much fun. It has
Thank
been
you.
so much fun talking with you. Thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show today. And I just love the difference you're making in the workplace. And I am so excited to go through your website more. And I want to see what this new crab is going to be named.
Yes, I do
I
too.
can't wait for that. I can't
I
wait for
can't
that.
either.
So,
It's gonna
so
be great.
we'll tell the listeners as soon as we find out, we're going to release that news. So hopefully we can,
Awesome.
update the show notes. So,
Cool. Cool. Fantastic. Thanks, Lisa.
okay,
Really
Rich.
appreciate it.
Yes, so nice meeting you. And yeah, thank you so much for being
Thanks a million.
here.
Take care, folks.